Good morning, folks. Eric with you here at the Bulwarks home base. Thanks for tuning in. So today we're going to talk a little bit about safety as a tactic. Before we get into that, though, first off, I'd like to take a moment just to recognize PFC Sammy Phillips, who was killed 9 years ago today in Iraq. He's one of our fellow Kentucky National Guard soldiers, and just take a moment of pause to reflect on his sacrifice and thank him for his service that he did. He is one that filled the gap, and for that we appreciate that, and also for his family. That obviously has to be a tremendous loss. I understand this as well as anybody, and having lost my brother in the 101st Airborne Division many years ago, so I understand that the feeling of loss doesn't go away easily, and so we want to take a moment to reflect on those that still stood up and filled that gap. All right, so we're here at the Bulwarks home station, and home to Fitz, if you will. It's a beautiful Saturday. Weather's changing, a little bit of fall in the air. I'm in the reflection zone, tranquility base, if you will, on the compound of the Bulwarks. So we're going to talk about today about safety as a tactic, and we've all heard safety, especially those that are into the firearms business or the self-defense business, as I profess to claim. I just choose firearms, and I think that's the one tool that is the greatest equalizer, no matter what size they are. So it's important to me that kind of people kind of understand my take on this. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. As I enjoy my cup of coffee with you, I hope you're having a good cup too. So safety as a tactic, and safety isn't something that we just need to spill out for a few moments and then get into whatever it is that we're doing. We want to be that as our defining guide of things that we do. I think when we apply lethal force in any capacity, we have to understand what separates us from the good guys from the bad guys is our ability to use safety soundly, that we don't endanger things that don't need to be. Colonel Jeff Cooper's universal firearms rules are a testament to that, because they're as near infallible as something that a human can create. His first rule, and I think this to me is the golden rule. I think it really drives home the point for the rest of them. Some of us may not agree with that, and that's okay. I think they're all very important, all equally important. Treat all firearms as if they are loaded. We all can understand that firearms can be unloaded, and they may not fire. We all know how to do that. Anybody that's touched a gun more than 2 minutes, had a parent or a grandparent show us guns for the first time, the first thing I always say is that safety. Don't let the muzzle point at things, and all those safety rules, and those are all important. If you own a firearm, look at the book that comes with the gun. The first 5 pages of the book talk nothing about safety. It may not be 5 pages, but we all understand. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Make sure you do this. Blah, blah, blah. You go to the range. There's 50 rules that we have to apply to, and they're all there for a reason. They're all there for probably an important reason. And we have to understand that, especially if we're in somebody else's place. We need to understand that there's rules, and they're set there for a reason. Somebody has broken that at some point, and that's why they're there. So they're all important. You get that. So we can all treat a firearm as if it's loaded all the time, regardless of the condition that we find ourselves. We have to understand that we are fallible creatures, and we make mistakes. And when we pick up a firearm, just treat it like it is loaded, regardless, because we only have to be wrong once for a firearm to discharge negligently. Rarely are there accidental discharges, but that's another topic for another day. And it will be catastrophic if it goes off inadvertently. So we have to train ourselves to handle firearms as if they're loaded. It's as simple as that. So I touch a firearm, I'm assuming that it's loaded. I'm treating it like it is, regardless of what condition I find it in. Now, if the gun is disabled and the barrel laying there and a slide and a receiver are in different parts, that's different. It's really not a functioning firearm at that point. We might be able to let our hair down a little bit there. But as long as it's functioning, I want to treat the firearm as if it's loaded. Okay? All right, so we've got that one down. So armed with that knowledge, the second rule, this obviously comes out making perfect sense, is that's rule 2, is never allow the muzzle to cover anything we're not willing to destroy. Now this is where kind of the tactics come in. Whenever we have the gun in a holster and it's on our body, where is the muzzle pointing? We have to be cognizant of that. Holsters fail, guns fail, and we certainly fail. So if any of those 3 things were to ever fail, we have to ensure that the muzzle is not covering something that we're not willing to destroy. So when you set your gear up and you maneuver about and you find that it violates this second rule, understand that you are setting yourself up for failure. And if you labor on the delusion that it is not loaded or I'm good enough, look at rule 1. You are pointing a loaded firearm at yourself. And if you, please don't come to my range with that mentality or one of my classes, because I will send you home. All right, it's just not worth the catastrophic damage that can happen for failing that. So treat all firearms as if they're loaded and never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. High on that list should be yourself. Rule 3, keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are indexed on target and a decision to shoot has been made. Think of it as 99% of the time, there's no need to putting your finger on the trigger. Keep it up above the trigger guard and away from the trigger, not in front of it. We can produce quite a bit of strength with our hands. So thinking that maybe it's okay to put it in front of the trigger guard and you have an involuntary convulsive reflex, keyword there being involuntary, that finger comes off of that trigger guard, it will go to the trigger and it will go off. So 99% of the time, we don't even think about putting our finger on the trigger unless we're actively engaging a target threat, prosecuting that target, if you will. We'll get into more of that in a moment. So now we're treating our firearms like they're loaded. We never allow the muzzle to cover anything we're not willing to destroy. And we keep our finger off the trigger till our sights are indexed on target and a decision to shoot's been made. Now, when we have these 3 rules right there, this is how we define this as a tactic as we maneuver around maybe even our own family members. Maybe we're having to deal with a lethal encounter. We have to train ourselves to be able to discipline our muzzle control and our trigger finger so that if people that don't need to be shot get into the picture, we can deal with that confidently. Okay, so now we're down to rule 4. This is know your target and what's beyond it. And this is about prosecuting the target. Is it guilty or not? Is it guilty of using illegal lethal force against me? So we have to identify our target, understand that it's a threat, and then deal with it. And we also have to know what's beyond it and what's in line with it, left and right. There are some rules that about engaging targets. We don't want to be firing too close with friendlies in the area. That's kind of up to your skill level to determine what that distance is. And you have to look at your own toolbox and your own personal standard operating procedures to really understand that. So be armed with that, and that's we have a good, clear understanding of knowing our target, knowing our threat. It has to be at 3 o'clock in the morning, half asleep. That's the kind of stuff we need to deal with. And that's the kind of stuff we can kind of plan as well. So we're going to treat all firearms as if they're loaded. That's my golden rule. Okay, so we have my golden rule is treat all firearms as if they were loaded. Treat them that way, regardless of what we think might be accurate or not. Never allow the muzzle to cover anything we're not willing to destroy, because pointing a firearm let's back up. Allowing the muzzle to cover something you are not legally justified in pointing a firearm at, you can't do that. Keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are indexed on target and the decision to shoot's been made. And know your target and what is beyond it. Prosecute the target. Every target needs to be prosecuted. So once we determine that it's a threat, something using illegal, lethal force against us, we can, using our tactics, that hopefully you will come to a reputable firearms instructor to try to hone some of those skills, that we will never allow the muzzle to cover anything we're not willing to destroy. We want to identify that it is a bad guy, and regardless of where we find ourselves, that we can safely and effectively manage the situation to an extent that nobody that does not deserve to be harmed is not. Okay? So that's about all I have today. I hope you will. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it's informative, more importantly, and I hope you'll tune in and view some of my other channels. We're adding them more and more weekly and monthly. And if you have ideas, we really want to hear from you. If you have that what-if situation, and I know there's a lot of that, we'll be glad to set that up on the range for you and work that out for you and see what we can come up with. I'd like to invite you to the Facebook page for the Bulwarks. We have a lot of information. If you're local here to Danville and the surrounding areas, we have our monthly meeting, the Personal Self-Defense Seminar. We go to the range sometimes. Sometimes we're in a classroom sharing ideas and talking about gear and what works best. We've had some pretty good success. We've had 2 of those classes so far, and they've all been very good. We have some good feedback from that. Go to my website, www.thebulwarks.com, and maybe you would be interested in having a class in your location. I'd be glad to help you out and travel to you. That's what I do quite often. So thanks for tuning in. A good book. I like to share some book ideas with you, and I have in the past. The one I'm reading right now is a Stephen Hunter book. It's called The American Gunfight, and I realize that's backwards to you. That's not Russian that I'm reading. So it's American Gunfight. Stephen Hunter, this is one of the few nonfiction books that he has written in his past. So maybe jump out and go give that book a check out. Really some really good stuff that's happened. So that's all I've got. One last thing is I'd like to plug my good friend Troy Clopton with God and Guns podcast. Like I said, I know that's backwards to you, but that's okay. That's life on the internet. I'm not overly proficient at such things, but I think I get the point across. So I hope you enjoyed it. Come see us. If you have any questions, you can email me or Facebook message or Twitter. I think I'm on there at EricDean72. That's all I got. So from the Bulwarks home base, thanks for tuning in again. It's been a joy doing the video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. It's an absolutely wonderful day.